A very warm good evening to you. Our very next guest is CEO of Pharma Wellness and former director of the Barbados Drug Service, director of the Massey Foundation, and also BARB. Mr. Lennox Prescod, welcome to this very special one-on-one.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Very, very good to have you. First of all, for our viewers, what is Pharma Wellness? What is the goal of the program and what is the program about?
Okay, Pharma Wellness. And the name Pharma, there's a relationship with medication, etc., because I'm a clinical pharmacist in addition to other stuff. And the program was developed as a result of my being director of the Barbados Drug Service. When we would give people medication, when it first started, free of cost, everybody got this medication. And after a while, I recognized that there was something missing, because we were giving people more and more medication, spending more and more money. But if you looked at the other end of the spectrum, the rates for diabetes were going up, hypertension was going up, obesity was increasing. So I said, there has to be something wrong, because just giving people medication and just increasing the budget every year didn't seem to be the answer. And what was wrong to me was that we weren't using the people enough, making them, empowering them to do certain things that would allow them to see value in what the government program was doing. Mm-hmm. So I then, all my time, you're working at drug service, I'm thinking of this stuff. Mm-hmm. And then I moved to the position of switching roles, where healthcare professionals were at the center of care and would tell you, do this and do that and what. And putting the members of the program or patients at the center of care and listening to them and getting feedback from them as to, is this program really working? Mm. Do you understand why you should take your medication? And you'd be surprised the answers that you got. Now, when you got answers like, oh, I feel I'm better because I don't feel sick any longer, so I don't take my blood pressure medication. Diabetes, I don't take. And they're silent killers, as we know. So they're no real symptoms. Mm-hmm. But people are waiting for these symptoms to occur. So in the interim, when the symptoms in their minds aren't there, to stop taking the medication. So a part of the program is to show people. So everybody gets to be like a mini researcher in the program. So like, we get to show you, if you don't take your medication, what happens? And then people understand, oh, I didn't realize that, or how dangerous it was. So that's how the program started, to pass information in a very simple way that people can understand, and then get them to do things. So every day they're living, they're doing something to help them the condition. And most importantly, the Know Your Numbers part of the program.
So the main goal for Pharma Wellness would be for preventative care and a focus on knowing your numbers as well.
Right. So like when I work with insurance companies, it is for preventative medicine and health and preventive health care. Mm-hmm. So we're preventing something from happening. So that, for example, we do a series of tests. When you join the program, we test you for your diabetes. For example, we do a HbA1c. And before you can join the program, you have an orientation session. We explain everything to you, what the tests are, what they mean, the impact of them, and so forth. So when you come to get the baseline test done, you're not asking, what's an A1C? What's this? You're already gone through that. And you're coming to get the test. But and then I show people. So A1C, if you got a score of 6.5 or greater, that puts you in the category for diabetes. If you get a score of 5.7 to 6.4, that puts you in the category for pre-diabetes. And anything less than 5.7 is no diabetes. So some people will come and tell me, I'm pre-diabetic. I say, okay, it's good to know. But where are you on the scale? Well, I don't know. I said the scale is from 5.7 to 6.4. It's important that you know where you are, because obviously if you're at 6.4 and diabetes are at 6.5, it is more urgent for you to do things to push yourself back down the line to get to 5.7. They're targets then that you have. And if you're at 5.7, it's not too bad. You can easily get back to thing. And there's no medication to move you from pre-diabetes back to no diabetes. It's lifestyle change, it's reducing your sugar, it is exercising, it is eating smaller portions, There's all these kinds of things. So we have a cooperated program called Eating Healthy, Exercising, and Lifestyle Change, which we give to the people. You join the program, we go through all the tests with you, you got this program. And then most importantly, you have our website, farmerwellness.org. So you can go to the website where there's a lot of information. And a lot of information, articles, I read a lot of articles based on my interaction with people. And so I'm talking to them, they say, you know, I don't understand this. It's, okay, fine. You're not the only one. So I read an article to explain what it is. So when people then come back to get their tests, then they will be talking about, oh, I read this thing, but I don't understand it. So we talk to them, the nurses, and I do that. Because it's a continuous assessment program. So we just don't give you the 18 tests in the beginning and you're done. We see you every 3 to 4 months after, do some additional tests. And critically, at the end of the year, by the end of the period, we will do all the tests that we did for you at the beginning of the program. So you can then see, have you improved or not?
In looking at your work as the former director of the Barbados Drug Service, it has been transformative since you've introduced what we know now in terms of the pharmaceutical industry. Why was it so important for you to make that transformation where the Barbados Drug Service is under the Tom Adams administration?
Yeah. Well, you know, under the Tom Adams administration at the time, they wanted to develop something similar to the National Health Service in the UK for medicine and for pharmacy. The medical part did not start. When I came back from the US around 81, 82, that was exciting to me because I was involved in what we then called third-party programs. Programs developed to give benefit to people, all right, and somebody pays for it. So I saw this as a great opportunity because at that time, people used to get prescriptions written, but they couldn't fill them because they couldn't afford to pay for them. And I would see people going to the doctor and getting these prescriptions, but they can't pay for it. That to me wasn't right because it mean you couldn't get better. So you weren't benefiting from the thing. And then there was this inequality in the system where if you were rich, if you were well off, you know, you had the contacts, you got everything. But the poor people, and back in the 80s and stuff, we had a lot of people still working on the plantations and so on, they needed help. And one of the things that really triggered me in this journey was in the 70s, the late 60s, 70s, right? When I was in Oistins, waiting to catch the bus to come down to the public library, because the little Oistins library didn't have the books for your A levels and stuff. And people would sit there on benches. A lot of people don't know what used to happen. There was no polyclinic, there was a clinic, and then there was a dispensary, you call them at the time. And people sit on the benches there and get the prescriptions filled. I remember sitting there one afternoon, the pharmacist was filling prescriptions for this person, and somebody came and told him, the fish running down your cash out. And to my horror and surprise, the guy said, okay, you're the last person I'm going to work with today because I got to go and catch some fish. And he closed the window. And I said, this was so bad because a lot of these people there couldn't come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
It was it. And then they didn't get the medication, so it got worse. And I felt we had to develop something. And I said a little secret prayer to the Lord. I said, Lord, if you could help when I grow up doing something to help people, don't have to go through this sort of stuff. Where people have equal access to the same medication and so on. And things worked out, you know, but things worked out. You have to have this deep belief that through prayer and a belief, I think things will happen. So then I did not come back to Barbados to do that. But when Minister Billy Miller, and I said, one day we were talking, she said, no, can we do something for these people? And I said, sure, I can develop this program for you where people will come and get medication, won't have to pay or whatever. And she said, okay, go ahead, which was great. I was finding the right people at the time. So we developed this program. It wasn't hard, wasn't easy, it was very difficult. Because here I come into a system which is controlled by, that time, the doctor's offices, a lot of them used to write, they give you the medication in little brown envelopes and stuff. No label, no nothing, I know. And people go and get this stuff. So they were tied to this whole thing. Yeah? So to change that wasn't easy. So we did the legislation and stuff like that. And we had some great people working with me, like Ian Archer, who was the PS at the time, very understanding. I remember giving him what we call homework on weekends, go home, look at the legislation and so on. He would do the work, come back, and we got this thing going. But then you had Pharmaceutical Society, you had BAMP, the doctors group. So you were doing something that was going to change the way they had conducted their business over time. So obviously, people would react to that. A lot of people felt that I was going to stop them from making money. And my reply would be, I'm not stopping you from making money, but the reality is that I'm doing this program for the government. I have X amount of money, so I have to make it fit to the program. So you've got to find ways that you now could come on board and get this thing, making the point that the most important people in the program are the people of Barbados.
In speaking of legislation, what were some of the enabling policies for the pharmaceutical industry back then, and what are some of the enabling policies that you would consider now where the Barbados Drug Service is concerned?
Well, you see, back then, they really didn't have a lot of control. And the division between pharmacy and medicine wasn't well set. Because doctors always believe, and it was a practice before, that they were the ones who saw you, but also the ones who could give you medication. All right? But in most countries, we had moved away from that and make the distinction. And it's important. So example, and we didn't go far enough here. When you go to a doctor like in the States, when you leave the office, and there's a pharmacy, even in that same complex, there has to be a way for you to leave the building and re-enter. Not when you come to the doctor's office, a pharmacy is right in front of you. Because that puts pressure on you and doesn't give you choice. So we had to do all of that. And then there weren't enough pharmacies really when you know we're going to bring the whole population to get their medication. So we had to set up a special benefit service, which is a special arm of the Barbados Drug Service. And I started that, I developed that whole thing. And this, so now you see, they have a lot of pharmacies, maybe over 100 pharmacies in Barbados now. Because what happened when I first came out of Barbados, there were only a few pharmacies, the Collins, the Knights, and so on. But when you created the drug service, and people could go all the pharmacies at their choice and get their medication, you needed pharmacies. And you needed pharmacists. And the pharmacists then, and to this day, they don't have to get collateral. Before, it was tough for them. Now, drug service, we would pay them within, I think, 6 weeks or 4 to 6 weeks. And then they can use that money to buy the medication from the distributors, give you the patient, we pay them, and the cycle on. So you didn't need to get this big set of collateral to start and stuff. And so that created opportunities and also employment. Because not only for the pharmacists, but for the pharmaceutical, the A's and the this and the that, distributors, you know, this kind of stuff. So there's a whole lot of legislation under the Special Benefit Service Act and so on that articulates how the program works and this and so forth, which is a beautiful thing, which allowed us to help other countries in the Caribbean. So I helped Bahamas develop the Bahamas National Drug Agency, Belize, Eastern Caribbean Drug Agency. I worked with all of them because we had the template here, right? And we can spread it. And that was important. Always recognizing. The greatest thing to me in Barbados right now is when I go into pharmacies and I see people just signing the form and paying their little $5 or so, because now you have to pay $5 or the dispensing fee is paid for by you, while the cost of the medication is paid for by the government. And that's a greater cost in all things. That makes me happy because I know that anybody in Barbados has access to that medication. Now, when I tripped that back to I did a lot of conferences for World Health and PAHO and everybody else. And I remember doing one for 145 countries in Canada. And my job at that conference, I went there on behalf of World Health, was to show what was happening in Barbados, the small Barbados. 145 countries. So when I got up and made my presentation, I remember the first questions the guy got up and said, I need some clarity. Are you saying that if I'm a millionaire and I live in Barbados, I could get my medication free of cost?
$1 million question.
And I said, yes. Because at that time, you didn't, I wasn't really aware of what was going on in a lot of the world in terms of pharmaceuticals. And I said, yes. And the guy shook his head and sat back down. Then got up again and said, that is not sustainable. And I said, maybe you think so, but I'm just here to tell you what is going on in Barbados. And I used to get a lot of things from people saying, well, when you go back home, tell them Barbados how happy we are that they're doing this and doing that, and they must be very proud of you, this kind of stuff. That time I get real licks down here from, you're changing the system,
You're also a member of the Barbados Childhood Obesity Prevention Coalition.
Yeah.
What are some of the policies that you're advocating for that also tie in with the general vision of farmer wellness?
Yes. And I represent BARP on that group, which is good. You see, because if we are going to get around the issues relating to NCDs, the biggest problem or the biggest obstacle in that way, in my view, is how we eat. Eating. Eating touches all the NCDs, diabetes, hypertension, cardiac issues, whatever. Now, so in the school nutrition policy and all that, which is a good program, but it's going to take a while for people to get used to it. You see, I understand this because I know what I went through with the Barbados Drug Service. When you come to change what people were doing, that they've been doing for a long time, and then the one who we see come here to change, just saying we've been doing this for so long, you think. So you've got to be able to get the message across in a way that allows them to be willing to partner with you, to understand with you. And you have to be able to get the masses with you.
The delicate balance between innovation and regulatory compliance.
Yes, because you need the regulations, because you can't have it before that. If not, people just do what they feel like. But you have got to have a end goal as to what you want. And they're all tied in together. Because if you don't get the young children eating healthy or healthier at that age, and also understanding why it is necessary for them to do that and how they can do that. When they get secondary school, go out into the world of work, you've lost them. It's harder and harder the older they get. So you've got to start young there. So I commend what you guys are doing and so on, going to the schools and stuff. But I also caution that it's not going to be an easy thing to do, because it's not only the children, it is the parents, it is the community around. And we had some serious changes in Barbados in how we eat. I'm old enough to know what used to happen and see what is happening now. But to be fair to people today, I always make the point that I don't know what I would have done today if I was living in this time as a youngster. Because when I grew up, we didn't have challenges like the fast food companies. There were none here. All the food was from home. Breakfast, lunch, and lunch was very simple but very nutritious, but we didn't know at the time. Lunch many times will be pear or avocado and a bread with some cucumber and this kind of thing, guacamole that we didn't know about what we were doing. We know all this fancy stuff we were doing. Avocado toast. We didn't put it on toast bread, but we put it in the bread. And avocado is one of the most important and healthiest fruits and meals in the world. Well, we didn't know that. They were cheap then. Nobody used to sell pears. Everybody would trade pears for bananas and this kind of thing. It was a barter system back then. So that we didn't have those obstacles. So we played a lot because we didn't have to spend time in the house. We had nothing to do in the house. We had no devices, no nothing. And also, if you were in the house, you're most likely that your mother would give you something to do. So the longer you spent outside, which would be all day during the summer. So by the time you came home, you were filled with dunks, mangoes, plums, whatever was around. But you didn't understand the nutritional value of what you were doing.
Where entities are concerned, do you see the pharmaceutical industry as last resort?
I say that the pharmaceutical industry and NCDs should not be the last resort. It should be a resort from early up, right? You've got to work together. So, for example, lots of people in the program may be on medication, tablets. But if you come into the Pharma Wellness program and you have high blood pressure and you're on 3 different medications, our aim is to get you down from 3 to 2, probably to 1, because you're not likely to be able to come off the hypertensive medication because we have a gene issue as Black people where we don't utilize the sodium or the salt properly. So we always have that challenge. It's unique to our Black race. But it means that instead of being on 3, you're now on 1. But what you're doing, you are eating healthier, you are exercising, and you understand that you are reducing your consumption of the sodium in foods that are high, like the biscuits, the bread. So if you reduce your sodium intake, and you come back in 3 months, and you see your, well, look at my blood pressure, it's really good. Yes, it's good, because you're exercising, you reduce your sodium intake, and what impact that has on me? It's reduced my blood pressure. So when I go to my doctor, my blood pressure is really, really good. We have a conversation. So he remove me from 3 medicines to 1. But it can only happen if you, the patient, is doing it. But people do it. Because when people see what they're doing and see the end result, they're so happy. So somebody who has an A1C, say, of 10, which is serious diabetes, and they go on this thing where they're reducing sodium, reducing the white foods, the white bread, the white sugar, all this kind of stuff, white pasta and so on, and you're switching them to whole grain pasta and so on. You can still have pasta, and you're reducing the big sets of food they eat. And they come back and say, oh, shoot, well, look, this thing working. When they come out next time, I'm supposed to lose 20 pounds. I can lose 5 already. So see, the first 5 is critical, because people never lost anything. I remember this lady losing 2 pounds and being excited. And people say, but she only lost 2 pounds. I say, but to her, that's so great because she never lost any weight before. Well, when she come back, she can lose 10. Because she realized what it does for people to let them know, you can do this. You can do this. This is part of what you can do. Instead of sitting down home hoping that, I hope this diabetes get better and so forth. It will, but you got to do something about it. And this way the whole country comes in now. There are a lot of myths in the country too about NCDs. That we got to think, the old myths like, you got to eat all your food because somebody somewhere else didn't get food today. And even though you're full, you're still struggling through to eat all this food. Things like nuts are bad for you because they got a lot of cholesterol. But nuts have no cholesterol. We teach people cholesterol is only found in animal meats or animal products, no plant-based.
Do you subscribe to that train of thought that healthy eating is more expensive than unhealthy eating?
No. No, because I tell people I practice eating healthy every day. It's not expensive for me because I don't eat, maybe I eat fish once a week. I don't eat chicken, I don't eat beef, I don't eat lamb. Now these are the expensive parts of your budget, most expensive. Well, fish used to be the savior before. Fish is now just as expensive as anything else.
I was speaking to a young man recently, and he was saying eating fast foods and not meal planning is actually much easier for him than actually planning meals.
Of course.
Meal planning just takes longer. It may take more time, but...
Of course. Of course. And this is where I'm saying this is all we have now to deal with the situation. Because we live in a fast society. Everything is fast, quick fast. So look at it from morning to evening. I talked earlier about my upbringing, where it's breakfast at home, lunch at home, dinner at home, all going provisions and whatever. In many days when we had the salads and stuff, on the salad, we used to get all the yam and potato and all that. You always had these things. You don't see that any longer. Breakfast now is from the mini mart or from the gas station. Vans coming in all through the day. Lunch is from the other vans. Going home at evenings, you're taking in something to eat because you're going home to cook. It's all part. So the meal planner is hard because if it can't be done in a few minutes, it's difficult. So I say to people, like okras inexpensive. I eat a lot of okras, eat a lot of spinach. Spinach grow wild all over the place, you know. But it's to get the taste. A lot of youngsters haven't got that taste because from the time they're small, they know where the fast food joints are and they want this and they want that and they're going in there. So their taste buds are attuned to that sort of stuff. So you can't give them, or you can try to give them some lettuce and so forth. But then this is where the parents come in. For a lot of parents, it is convenient to allow the children to get the snack boxes and so on.
So it's a battle of inconveniences and conveniences,
Yeah.
as opposed to more expensive versus less expensive.
Yeah, people who see it for the convenience aren't really critically concerned about the money they're spending. It may mean to them that they have less money to do something else, but they tell you, and it's not as simple as it sounds sometimes, because when you talk to people, especially young women who've got two children at home and so forth, and have to get up in the morning and get them ready, take them to daycare, and come home at night and do the homework with them and so forth. And then I remember saying to them, on weekends, it couldn't be planned. Well, weekends, I got to wash the clothes and press the clothes. So the time isn't there. So I get people to do creative stuff. I say, you know, you can't go to the gym because you have nobody to keep the children. So this is what you do. You push around the chairs at home on mornings, and you put on the TV and you go to on YouTube or something and see a program and you do it. You get the exercise there. The children are still sleeping, so you got to get up a little early. So you got to work with the children. Except if they're a little bigger, you can involve them in the exercises you're doing. But you've got to become creative and don't say, well, I can't do this because I don't have the time. You got to find the time. When you get sick, you lose a leg or you lose a toe, people find time to start exercising and so on. But that's not the time that you should be doing it before. So we got to get some things right. We got to get this prevention thing. So people have been thinking all the time, how can I prevent myself? And I say myself because and there's the thing, it's a personal thing. If I lose my toe, it's my toe. And I'm responsible for that. Can't blame you, can't blame anybody else, can't blame the doctor. So how can I make sure I don't lose anything as much as possible? Things will happen, but I have no control over that, by doing the best I can.
A lot of pertinent information, Mr. Prescod. At this time, we're going to pause for a short commercial break, but we'll be right back with more one-on-one.
Keep it clean, keep it green.
Barbadians, we invite you to get involved and play your part as we clean and green Barbados. Come into your community with media launches, bulk waste collection exercises, community engagement sessions, and giveaways. Get on board. Let's keep Barbados clean and green.
Beautiful, beautiful Barbados.
We are back with this very special one-on-one episode with CEO of Farmer Wellness and former director of the Barbados Drug Service, Mr. Lennox Prescod. Can you speak to the importance or the effectiveness of Farmer Wellness and how do you measure that particular success?
The way the program is set up is that we measure everything as evidence. Because I was just talking about, you have to know what you want at the end and how you're going to get there. Because along the way, you're going to have a lot of obstacles, but you got to be creative and shift to still make sure you get to the end. So I'm bringing this program and developing this program. And I know that if I don't do it right, a simple question derails it. How do you know that this thing works? Somebody will ask you. Well, I think that the people are getting better. Think? How you should know. So I decided I can make sure I know. So from the time I started, it comes at the nation now who's been in the program for 8 years and lots of other companies. What you do, all the test results, we keep a record of them. You keep a record of them yourself. And then we have a master file of all the test results. So at the end of the year, like I was saying some stuff, we do a lot of analyses. And the largest one we done was like 500 people to see how many people started with diabetes, how many ended up without diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol, all kinds of stuff. So then you know it's working or not working. Not only we know, you know is working or not, because you have to test results. And you have in your booklet or on your phone the standard results. So you can compare them and see, yeah, I was at 5, I should have got to 2, and I end up during the end of the year at 3. So that's progress. So we share that. I share that with companies. It's aggregate data, yeah, very important, because at first people felt I would share the names. I said, I don't share the names, it's just numbers. So your company is saying how healthy or how that you become healthier as a group at the end of the year. The evidence is there to prove that. And that's why when I tell people it works, because in problem wellness we know it works, you might be a little down because you feel this thing ain't working. But it takes time. It takes time.
So government has been saying repeatedly that they just can't do it all, and they do need the support and buttress of those within the private sector. How is Pharma Wellness seeking to serve those marginalized communities as well?
I have not offered the program, I have shown the program to senior people in the ministry. I recently showed the program to the NCD Commission, Bulbudia, because I think it is something that they need to look at and see maybe how they can use it in the fight against NCDs within the programs that they may have. For example, when I go to people's homes, the people can't come to us, to clinics. So I go to their homes and do the tests for them at home. These are people who many times will never get these tests done, can't get to clinic. You know, they're just there. They're eating anything. When you go there, you see what they're eating, you can help them and so forth, you know, the test. Because it's going to take everybody involved to get these chronic conditions under control. Not just the government, not just the private sector. We have to work. And we got to break down the silos and so forth. There are many groups up there doing stuff, but we got to see how we could work together to make it even better. I might be reaching people one way, you might be reaching them another way. Let's see how somebody's coordinated. Let's see how we can make it work. Because at the end of the day, if we don't do that, the situation is going to get worse and worse and worse. And every year it's getting worse. Every year the number of amputations are going up and so on. And it should be frightening people. But people sometimes don't really understand what it means, for example, when somebody loses a limb and they have to get a prosthesis, they have to get the ramp to the house and all that there. And if you drive around Barbados now, you see so many homes now have ramps attached to them. So I'm saying, where things work, we should not say, this is not within the purview of this group or that group. Because what you're saying is, you're not allowing somebody who could benefit from that program or that aspect to get it. Because at the end of the day, this is Barbados. And we all are working for the same cause, to reduce the incidence of NCDs and so on.
Do you see the importance of health policy in driving change where behavior is concerned for Barbadians?
Yes, health policy is very important. And health policy, we must be willing to accept change within health policy. The health policy of 20 years ago cannot be the health policy of today. Because the basics have changed. The way we buy food, the way we see food, the way food's presented is different from before. So we have to understand that and come up with new policies. But at the same time, we have to be able to get these policies over to people in a way that they understand and not make them believe it is coming with some big heavy hand. You have to do that. Don't buy that no more. You can't do that if you want to be successful. Because a lot of people tell you, I would like to do this, but I don't understand. We never used to get people reading labels before because years ago there weren't any labels. You didn't need labels because you're eating cassava and buy food and yam and thing. But now you have to be able to read the labels and understand what the labels are telling you. Because just telling you to read a label is one thing. But when you look at the bottle, you see all these things, sodium this. I always found a lady, and I was telling her to reduce your blood pressure, you have to decrease the amount of salt you're taking. And she came out with this particular product, said to me, Mr. Prescod, you know, I continue to eat this because I read the label and I know salt on the label. And I said, I'm so sorry. They don't say salt any longer. It says sodium. Mm-hmm. She said, oh, shoot, well, see, you got sodium this, sodium bicarbonate, sodium nitrate, sodium everything. I said, yeah, that's a problem. So I was saying to her, you see how you can get into trouble? Because you're looking for salt, but no salt is the real sodium. So I'm saying it's a lot of education that we keep talking about, but education in a way that people think. So in the Farmer Wellness program, for example, we do a lot of little drawings and things to show people this is your artery, this is what happens when the artery gets blocked up. And going up the blocked artery, then you can get a heart attack, you can get a stroke. So then people sit down and say, I don't understand, this is serious stuff. You know, you're not making them a scientist, you're just showing them in a graphical way how things work. And not just telling them, if you do this, this can happen.
What are the long-term goals of farmer wellness, and how does that tie in with with the general health policies that we do have?
The long-term goals of farmer wellness is to get as many people in it as possible. So now I'm dealing with churches, for example, groups, you know, because I feel like, example, like churches have a lot of people in them. And in the Barbados context, especially the older churches like the Catholic, the Anglican churches, the population are elderly. And most of them are going to have a chronic condition. So the approach to them has to be different. So churches now, if they're going to serve the purpose, cannot just be focusing on people coming and getting some wine and listening to the priest or the pastor preach. You've got to look after the needs of this particular population that is now elderly. Then you've grouped everything, because you've got to get everybody involved in this program. And when that happens, and they go home and the parents involved, the children involved, that's how we can get a healthier Barbados, by people understanding. And then we're using our education to help that. Now, I also have plans to taking it outside of Barbados, because I have requests right now from some other countries who love the program and want the program. But that's the next step. So I come to this juncture now, I try to do that next step. The beauty of that is that when we put the program on your smartphone, all the information goes to a server here. So let's say you're doing the program in Trinidad, Jamaica, whatever. All the information is coming back to us. We can then have a conference here, or conferences looking at what's happening in the region, what's happening in the wider world, comparing information. Because it's all one. All you're doing in your countries is to key the data in to tablets, and it comes back to us. So you see how beautiful that is? That's how we're going to be able to manage what's happening with chronic conditions and feed that back to people. So people see that because of what we have done, look what's happening now. Look at the empirical thing now. So we want to see, instead of 350 amputations a year, we're down to 325. And we're coming down to 310 and 200. That can happen, but it takes time and effort.
Mm-hmm. How are you seeking to continue advocating where the health policy agenda is concerned? Well,
in my relationship now with the government and so forth, I'm showing them what can happen when you do things like this, they do things like this, so that they could then consider that into their policy. You see, our policies basically was one of treatment, reliance on treatment, reliance on medication. That policy has to change. You have to take all the other interests in, nutrition, exercise, using the other professionals involved, nurses, pharmacists, nutritionists, dietitians, all of them have to play a role in getting this big problem under control. Mm-hmm. It's just not one group. Mm-hmm. So that calls for changes in policy, so that the public will realize that these people who are not now part of this policy thing are really doing things that could help us. So we got to change that sort of mindset and show people this whole group here to help you. So like, just like it takes a village to raise a child, it's the same concept. It will take a village or a group of health professionals to get the situation under control.
In speaking of compliance and behavioral change, how were you able to go after innovation in your tenure as director of the drug service? How were you able to, pursue innovation while also maintaining compliance to some degree, where regulatory measures are concerned?
You see, compliance is critical, especially in chronic conditions. Because if you're on medication, you've got to take it every day, as prescribed and so forth. What a lot of people, so you move from, in terms of policy, one time we just used to use like 3 tablets say hypertension or diabetes. Now that medication is put into one tablet now, combination, call them. There was a time when a lot of people in the medical profession didn't like combinations. It was new. They didn't understand it. But if you have to take 3-4 tablets a day, from the time you go past one, the compliance level goes down. It's amazing how people go home and they got all this medication. They put it on the table. And they say, I think that people make a mistake. It can't really mean for me to take all this here. So I can take this one today, and this one tomorrow, and next year this one. Because for them, that is simply not. But all at one time, no. And because they don't feel comfortable asking you a question. Why am I getting all this in? Why? You should, at that point, before they leave, that should have been explained to them. The importance of taking all this here. And also give them the hope. If you do this properly, for example, I've had people who tell me they're on medication. A lot of people tell you that, but then you can test it whether they are or not. You're on medication. But then they see the blood pressure or the diabetes score is going up. And I say, well, something here don't make sense. This medicine is so good. I know it works. So why isn't it working for you? Oh, well, don't worry. I go into the doctor and get it changed. I said, no, you don't need to go and get anything changed. What I would like you to do for the next 3 months is to take your medication every day. Put some in your bag to make sure if you miss a dose, you got it when you get to work. And when you come back in 3 months, and this is all the little research I got them to do, we would then look and see, did it make sense? Has your blood pressure or diabetes become better? And they come back and say, oh, shoot, look, oh, my blood pressure now is so good and things. I said, because you took the medication every day. So when you would tell me you were taking it, I knew you weren't taking it. But you have to do that. And then we have a laugh and everything. Yeah? It's not like we fight in to say, oh, you're fine out. Oh, I'm so happy now I take this thing. You got to do that sort of stuff. Huh? But that, too, is a big problem. Because if the government is spending all this money giving you medication, giving you all this therapy, all this kind of stuff, and you're not doing it, at the end of the day, that's wasted money. And the condition gets worse.
How do you see the future of the Barbados Drug Service, and what opportunities do you anticipate?
With the Barbados Drug Service, excellent program, but I think in the current situation, has to get more to what we're talking about, working with the people they serve. Not just providing them with medication, but providing them with things that would encourage them to take the medication properly. All right? Also, share with the public. I mean, when I was there, and I say, well, God was there, you have to do something, because they did it. But I used to share a lot of information with the public. I used to show people how much money we were spending on each tablet, each medication, and so forth. What was the most prescribed drug for diabetes, hypertension. And that's important, because then you're comparing what we're doing here with international norms. And then asking questions. So you have to do these things to ask questions. Is what we're doing correct? Or we're doing it because somebody feels this way it should be done, but you're not meeting the scientific standards and so forth. We got to do all those things. But in order to do that, you have to share information. Because in today's world with shipping and all kinds of things, they're difficult. They're issues. So you got to be able to switch sometimes from one medication to another medication. Not your fault, but this is the world we live in. So people need to understand that so they can appreciate it, what's happening. And cost. Cost is going to be a continuing big factor. Because the more people on medication, the higher the cost. Is government going to be able all the time to give you continued amounts of money that they have to take from other parts of the health program or other programs that they may consider important? The whole issue of, and so far we have done a good job at it, not putting more financial burden on people, but raising the amount they pay and so forth. But that's an interesting thing that's going on now, because all over the world, people are paying more and more for their medication, even in the UK, with national service, which is in big trouble right now because of the cost to it. So we got to be conscious of that. How do we stop people from wasting medication? You got to create programs that talk to them in a way that they can understand why. You see, the difficulty of giving people medication, as we say, free at point of service, is that in their minds, it's free. There's no cost to it. And that's how we talk about things in Barbados. Oh, it's free, education is free, and this is free. And one person told me, yeah, free, like manna from heaven. I said, the manner that we're talking about here got some dollars attached to it. So we've got to change those conversations and change the policies, not to hurt people, but to show people why they need to help the program not get out of hand. Because when that happens, then you suffer. We all suffer. So I think we have to look at today's world, and this is the challenge in healthcare. As the world changes, as things change, policies have to change all the time. Mm-hmm. The NCD policy has to change all the time because more things are coming in to this marketplace that makes it difficult to do certain things. The whole thing with the front of package label and all that, you know, the fight with that. Yeah, that's maybe good for us, but for some people, they're interested in that. So you've got to find ways to incorporate that, work with the different groups and so forth, and come to some situation that everybody can benefit from. Mm-hmm. But you got to take the people along with you. Mm-hmm. And they're your biggest supporters. Because when the people speak, everybody listens. Mm-hmm. But they will only speak if they really understand what you're doing and they can be helpful to you.
Do you have any special advice right now for those persons who are involved in the running of the Barbados Drug Service? Well,
no special advice. I think things are changing out there. One of the things is that a lot of we have conditions now, health conditions now, that we didn't have before. They're coming up more and more. And you see more and more of this in the newspapers, people getting on GoFundMe pages and so forth. And sometimes you want to buy the medication, but it's difficult. So what I would like them to do, and keep at it all the time, it's not going to go away. You got to be brave, you got to be courageous. So like I used to say all the time, I would like to buy this drug for this person, but it's $50,000. But what it's going to do is create a good life for the person. But I may be spending $100,000 on stuff that when you look at it from a scientific and pharmaceutical perspective, medical perspective, you really shouldn't be spending money on that. But sometimes it's because you've been doing it so long, you know you're going to get a lot of pushback. So you got to be able to create those shifts, right? And because I think that the day will come when the government will find it more and more difficult to give you more and more money. Those days are going fast. So you've got to be creative, and you've got to recognize who you're serving, the people, and the people depend on you.
What was the approach of Pharma Wellness in terms of incorporating corporate social responsibility?
I looked at people perspective. And even though we're a small group, we do a lot of that. There's some people who come to you and you really need to help them, but they can't pay. So what do? You take care of them. There's sometimes I do it myself because I then don't have to pay the nurses and stuff, right? And I will tell people up front, I'm doing this here because of that. Because there are people out there who are genuinely underpaid. In Pharma Wellness too, we allow people to pay the fees in installments. If you don't have all the money one time, we allow you to pay as you can. Because at the end of the day, I know you can pay it all. But at the end of the day, you're getting better. But think of it. If we didn't do that with some people, they'll never get the help. Right? Never get the help. So we have to do that as a sort of give back to the country too. Huh? There's a lot more that can be done through give back programs from the medical side and the pharmaceutical side. I know some people tell you to do it a lot, but we don't measure it. But that's important because everybody cannot pay. In today's Barbados, it's very expensive to live. And a lot of people, after they bought their food and whatever else, don't have a lot left over, pay their rent and stuff. So you've got to be, and every time people don't buy their medication, or people, instead of taking it every day, take it one today and one next 2 days and so forth, that is creating a problem that we're going to have to pay for down the road. So that's what I'm saying. If we don't do the prevention up front here, we can pay for this down here with all the chronic diseases. Right. That's the problem. QEH, accident emergency. I mean, everything is linked in together. QEH, accident emergency should never have so many people in it, waiting for simple things. Over here, this side here, the Pharma Wellness and other groups here, we are preventing that from happening. So you got to support us over here so we can prevent the crowd over here by teaching people what to do at home. I'm happy when people tell me, I've started doing this at home. I've started eating this way. You know, it's not expensive as I thought. I eat an avocado, and now this avocado season, then the best season in the world. So you can buy one, it's cheaper than the fish, it's cheaper than the steak. But you should not buy the avocado and put the salt on it. So no, there's enough salt in the fruit itself. And secondly, you shouldn't just buy it and eat all at one time. But then that makes it expensive. Because you slice it, mix it with your cucumber or whatever, and you eat that, and tomorrow you still got some for today. So we got to change the way we do things. There's a lot of education that has to occur, but we got to have programs where, one of the things I would love is if I can do like a program every quarter or more, and just talk to people. Come visit us at this place, and we talk about what's going on, how we're going to prevent NCDs, how we're going to fight this NCD battle. Because it's not for small groups sitting down, come up with policy. That's fine. But it's for the people who are here to understand what the policy, and to be doing something, and doing it in a way that we can measure. So that when people are doing stuff over here, and you can measure, they're happy that they're getting better. We're happy because we can measure, we can see what's happening. It's not like they feel, I think I'm doing good. I don't think it. Thinking isn't going to help. You got to have the measurements.
To add to your point, though, it's one thing for groups such as Farmer Wellness to want this for Barbadians. It's another thing for government to put policies in place, enabling policies in place to help Barbadians, to be better educated and make healthier choices. But then there's also that challenge whereby some Barbadians are just not that interested in what is good for them. How do we get persons to that point where they see, this is a challenge, this is affecting you, this is leading you to death, and so forth?
That's always going to be a challenge. So I've worked out in my life that there's some people who pay attention to what you're saying at the late stage, who will say, well, I ain't sure you, but then they get a heart attack and they start exercising and so forth. It's hard to say you can get everybody to do it. But if you get the majority to follow, you win the battle. The majority. And when you get people doing it and it's spreading to other people and people seeing these people thing, and you're not afraid to do it. You're not afraid to tell people, I eat, for my breakfast, I have a avocado and bread, avocado toast, and that's it. I don't need that and 2 sausages and an egg. We do breakfast and everything else I eat. No, that's enough protein for me. Or you can have oats in the mornings. I don't want to have oats and 3 eggs and 2 salt bread. We have to, but the way we do it is to come to people and talk to them. Let them ask questions, like you're asking questions, and give them information. Simple information. Not hard, but you've got to be willing to do it. And let them go and do it. But then you have to put in place measurements to make sure that they're doing what they're doing. If not, for example,